wouldn't feel so to get
Right.
on.
Good morning, Marjorie.
Morning.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just letting folks in now. Good morning, everyone.
I
Folks
figured
are
we'd
still
be
joining.
a small group today with the holiday. Not sure that we're going to have quorum or not. We'll have to see.
Marjorie says she'll be right back. Still letting folks in. Good morning, Andrea. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm playing the part of Ryan today. Sometimes that's my favorite. Sometimes that's overwhelming. So, but I like this group very much. If I do have to hop off or back on, it's just a function of having my hand in too many pots today. But other than that, I'm looking forward to the holiday weekend. So good to see you all.
Thanks for being here, Andrea. Great to see you too. I know Megan is also planning on being here. There she is. Yes.
Okay, I think the waiting room has slowed down a little bit, so
Hey,
hope, yeah. I think we're ready to go.
bring our July BPAC meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here as we are kicking off into our holiday weekend. Appreciate your time and commitment to being here. I will move right into roll call. Excuse me. Aaron Black. I believe I've seen Aaron. Natalie Brown.
Good morning. I'm present.
Good morning. Savannah Brown.
Present.
Charles Davis. Carrie Eckert. Jacob Fry.
Good morning, everybody present.
Morning, Jacob. Thank you. Sean Gartrell.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Sean. Kelly George.
Good morning, I'm here.
Hi, Kelly. Lorene Gilroy. Looks like Lorene is absent. Marjorie Grimsley. She said she was stepping away from
Yes,
him.
I'm
Yes.
here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Jenny Guencheva.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Jenny. Danielle House. Looks like Danielle is absent. Megan Lovelace.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Asia Lyons. Looks like Dr. Asia is absent. Sharon Mock.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Sharon. Michael Miller. Looks like Michael is absent. Dennis Streeter.
I'm here.
Thanks, Dennis. Angie Wold. Looks like Angie is absent. And Annette Zacharias.
I'm here. Good morning.
Morning, Annette. And I will let our fabulous BHA and state agencies go ahead and come off mute and introduce yourselves. Thank you for being here.
I'll start. I'm Andrea Jones. I'm the Deputy Policy Director at Behavioral Health Administration. I'm filling in for my direct boss, Ryan Templeton, today while he is on a much deserved vacation. So good to see you all.
I can go next. Rachel Horde, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Support Employment Program Manager. I will be hopping over to my phone, so you'll see a 970 number here in like a little bit, but hi.
Okay, next, Phyllis Reed, Director of Health Education Services at CDE. Welcome, everybody.
And this is Bonnie Holiday. I'm with the Prevention Services Division at CDPHE. And for the purposes of this group, I'm here to provide any resources or support related to prevention. I'm your prevention technical assistance provider. And Marjorie, I owe you an email. Sorry about that.
I think that's all external state folks. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the eve of a huge holiday. My name is Judith Tieku, and I am the Community Engagement Manager here at BHA. And I will hand it over to Calandra to introduce herself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Calandra Lindstadt, she, her, or they, them pronouns. I am Northeastern Regional Engagement Specialist for BHA and happy to be here supporting.
Melissa,
Okay.
Melissa is on? Yes. Melissa, would you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Morales. I am an executive PA at BHA, and I will be taking the meeting minutes.
Thank you so much.
And I see we have Robert from the Department of Agriculture. Welcome, Robert. And also Ann Denton
Yay, Anne just joined.
from SAMHSA.
Good morning, Anne. And we're done with introductions. We're just waiting for you to introduce yourself. Oh, you're mute. Yeah. I think she's probably on another call. Yes. Okay. Hope.
Or is she getting off mute?
There I am. I'm sorry. So sorry. I'm Ann Denton, Advocates for Human Potential. I am your assigned technical assistance provider for Planning Council. So I'm here to help.
Thank you for being here, Anne and everyone. Appreciate it. I believe that we are all caught up on updating meetings from previous months and approvals. I think we're good to move into seeking approval for our June 5th meeting minutes. Does anyone have any updates, corrections? I know we didn't have a lot of time for review, but hoping that you had a chance to, and looking for any minute meeting corrections or looking to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded.
Awesome. Our June meeting minutes are approved. Okay. Last month, we had a legislative update, a large one from Ryan Templeton. So looking for any discussion, any remaining questions, insights, feedback that we have. We've got Andrea here in Ryan's place to support us with any updates, any discussions, feedback that came from our meeting last month.
I love it when you guys make my job this easy. Then I just get to report back to Ryan. Everything's fine. But no, I'll put my information in the chat too. Megan.
Thank you, Andrea, for being here. Great to see you. I think we're all a little curious about whether or not there may be a special session due to the kerfuffle that is currently happening at the federal level. And I just didn't know if y'all had any insights on that, or if there was a special session over the summer. What would that look like?
Sure. So not that I've heard, just on the top. We've obviously heard rumblings based off of kerfuffle is a good word for it. I've been using debacle a lot. So just with the reconciliation bill and all the movement on the Hill and trying to read the tea leaves, there has been discussion of special session. I know some states have done it, typically in Colorado, and Ryan will correct me on the next one if I am out of turn here. But I think special sessions usually are called towards like end of summer months, like August, September-ish, right before when we start really gearing up for what would be the real session, like main session the following year. I don't, and this is just my personal opinion, but like, while I've heard the rumblings, I just don't think there's been enough movement on it fast enough for it to happen in Colorado right now. And again, not necessarily speaking for BHA right now, but I just don't think it's coordinated enough on a topic to call a special session at this point, because there's so many channels by which. So that's my current take. I could be sending y'all an email next week that says, guess what? We're going to head into special session, right? But we will share as much information as we can when we hear the rumblings. And that's the best I've got. What an unsatisfying answer. I'm sorry.
No worries. We're all curious. And then are there any other sort of BHA convenings or stakeholderings around future policy looking towards our next legislative session that we should be aware of to participate in?
I will get an updated for this group. I didn't come prepared with it, but I will get an updated rulemaking schedule for any packets, any rules that are moving forward. Those are very policy adjacent, always before session. And I know you're heavily involved in that, a lot of people here, but I'll make sure that all that information's in one place and current. Obviously, I'm sure we've been talking a lot about the LIFTS launch next Tuesday. So that's kind of our biggest push at the moment. Love to see as many as we can. So, and yeah, Judith, I was like, I know Judith has been speaking about this one at length. So I think that we are anticipating having multiple more convenings, maybe not at that level, but on more specific topics before the end of the year. I would anticipate provider forums, stakeholder forums, et cetera, as we see all this federal movement, because we've got to push this information down, coordinated with the other agencies somehow, so that everybody in the system actually has a realistic picture of what we're dealing with. So I anticipate actually quite a few of them. Our commissioner's big on wide and broad communication, which we adore. So if you have something specifically that this group or even in your individual lives that you would like, definitely send it community engagement in Judith's way. If you're like, we're hearing a lot of rumblings on this topic, we're always happy to take those and tailor sessions as needed as well. Cool.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you for, it's been really engaging reading on the BASO contracts. Thank you for releasing those so that we're all able to read more about what that will look like with the rollout. And I'm sure we'll have some additional questions around those as we see that work move forward.
Absolutely. Those are voluminous documents, indeed. As everybody digests them, we anticipate questions and alignments. Send them on over as you work your way through it.
Any other questions? Feedback? Thank you, Andrea, for putting your email in our chat for anything that comes up after the meeting or questions that you can answer. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to discuss in legislative updates, I say we keep moving along here and turn it over to our lovely Ann Denton for any SAMHSA updates you might be able to share.
Oh, I'm sorry to say that kerfuffle and debacle are two great words. I think we have a lot of uncertainty going on at SAMHSA. The good news that I can share is that, as from the perspective of the people that we're working with on the Planning Council efforts, they are proceeding as they would be proceeding if there was not uncertainty in the future. In other words, they're accepting technical assistance requests. They're proceeding to develop tools for planning councils to use. So they're doing business as usual, and so are we in that sense. I think this is, again, not representing SAMHSA, but representing, for me, decades of experience. We should act as if the efforts, that the important role that you have will continue, despite the significant level of uncertainty. I do know, on a related note, and you may already know this, that the president's budget has a number of things. The proposed president's budget has a number of things in it that are concerning, and one of them is removing funding from protection and advocacy organizations. So your disability rights organization. But again, it's a proposal. We don't know what's going to happen. I think to move forward in this environment, we can only act as if what we're doing matters, which is true, and what we're doing will continue, which is also true, although it may not get the federal funding. So that's really all I've got.
Bonnie.
Questions or horrified comments, anything? Yeah. We so know.
Hey, Anne, thank you so much for the update. Can y'all hear me okay? I feel like my volume's
Yes.
off. Okay,
Yes.
good. And yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, I think this, things like this matter so much. I was wondering, I watched a webinar that was put on by CADCA. I was wondering if you were familiar with it, and it gave a really informative breakdown of the president's budget. CADCA is an organization that does a lot of advocacy work for prevention coalitions around the United States.
Okay.
And they also had some informative call to action slides. I think, like, as a state employee, I have to be careful, but I can share this resource if people are interested.
That would be great. That'd be great. If they have that archived, I would definitely spend time looking at it. Yeah.
I'll post it in the chat here.
Okay. Other comments, questions? All right.
Megan?
This is because I'm not a state employee, and I can share with you that there are ways to reach out to your legislators across the state. And today's the day to do it. I know it's the day before a holiday, but I'm going to go ahead and drop some emails into the chat of people that you can email today. And please share with them exactly what it is that your organization is doing to serve the people of Colorado, and what would happen if you were no longer able to serve the people of Colorado in the capacity that you do now. It's really important that they hear from you today. Now, every one of our state legislators needs to hear from you. You might hear that there's a few legislators in our state that we really want to talk to. So as I sneeze, I'm saying CD3 and CD8, but I'm also letting you know that we should reach out to all our legislators, because even the ones we know would never vote to cut our health care away, those are the people that are working with the people we think may. So please email your legislators today. I'm going to put their emails in the chat, and it doesn't have to be long. You can also call them on the phone. I'll share their numbers. Sometimes they don't answer. So ways for us the day before a holiday, the day before the 4th of July, to really let people that are voting on our behalf know what freedom means to us.
Right. Anything else? All right.
Anne, thank you so much for being here. Just sending you so much strength and support in navigating kerfuffle, uncertainty, all the many adjectives that we could be using here. And I do appreciate hearing the positive that there is, keep on moving forward, even though there's uncertainty, and that SAMHSA is able to have that type of resilience right now.
Right.
Says a tremendous amount about SAMHSA and the importance to keep moving forward, regardless of this right now. That's really, for me, I find that very helpful and important to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that. Megan, thank you for being such a strong leader for us to share how we reach out, who, where, providing options and something simple but impactful that we can do before this 4th of July weekend, and understanding that, wow, where we are and how we still don't know where we're going. And I hope that there's some sense of resiliency that we can all find in the work that we're doing and moving forward, regardless of this kerfuffle.
Yeah.
Any other shares or questions or comments for Anne or each other? Here's our space where we're holding that space and really this offering our collective support for one another here. Well, thanks again, Anne. Okay. This always feels strange to do, but I know that one thing that we do need to strengthen our council is to recruit for additional members. Our BPAC application is in our agenda. There's a link to our application. I believe, if I remember this correctly, we are accepting applications through the end of July. Tasha, we would love for you to make a ruckus. Thank you.
Yes.
Do I have that right, through July 31st? We're accepting applications? Thanks, Judith. And this is really helpful to have this recruitment information also, on our agenda, linked on our agenda, so we can see kind of where we're at, where we're going. Oh, there we go. Active recruitment, open application period through July 31st. Yes. Judith, can you also remind us, do you mind scrolling up for the individuals who are, let's see, upcoming vacant seats for those list of 6 individuals? In our bylaws, my understanding is you can sit for a second term. Is that?
Yes, you can sit for a second term. You can even sit for a third term, but there has to be a year in between before you can reapply. But I think for all of those, we will still need commissioners' approval. But yes, you could have 2 consecutive terms, and then a year in between, and then reapply. I think that either Marjorie or Megan, I know Marjorie definitely knows this by heart. So please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
Okay, yay.
So for those of us who are in upcoming vacant seats and want to continue, we fill out the application just like anyone else, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And just for people, this is Margie, just for people to know, you can still attend meetings in that year that you're not a voting member, which is what I did, so that you can still participate, your voice can be heard, you can be on committees. It's just that you're not able to vote for that interim year, and then you reapply.
Thanks, Marjorie, for your support and expertise here. Any questions on membership recruitment, vacant seats, any components? We've got some ideas, a running list of points of contact, and looking to expand our team. So please share our application far and wide and reach out if any questions come up. I'm not seeing any hands or chats on questions, so please share this far and wide. And application closes July 31st. And thanks for being here, Andrea. Okay.
Oh, can you please just clarify, will there be a membership committee that will review any new incoming applications, or is that no longer a thing?
There will be a membership review to look over that within these few months between now and August, September. We're really focusing on the block grant review group subcommittee, and so once that's all kind of out of the way, when this recruitment process has wrapped up, then we'll really dig into the membership applications and review them and all the processes with that. Thank you. That's a great question.
Okay, thanks.
Megan.
And also, just like always, the subcommittee does not hold the ownership, right? We're going to bring that back to all of y'all, and we're going to be making those decisions collectively. So if you can't join us for those membership subcommittee meetings, please know that we will always bring this back to the council as a whole for that final decision making on those recommendations.
Thanks for bringing that clarity, Megan. Anne asked us, when do terms expire?
So it's kind of staggered a little bit, which is a good thing, so that all of you, all members' terms don't expire in the same year. And so I'll have to go in and pick each of you and when your term expire. But it's everyone's term expires in a different year. I don't know if that's the question, Anne. Okay, I see nodding.
Thanks for asking. Judith, do you want to speak to the interim plan?
Oh, yeah, I feel like we have spoken about this a little bit in that we are suspending the systems advocacy subcommittee just for a few months while you are really focused on the block grant recommendations. A few weeks ago, pardon me, all the weeks are kind of jammed up for me, but a few weeks ago, the block grant subcommittee met to start discussing the recommendations and look at the last years, the previous recommendations, the processes, opportunities to fine tune and make things a little bit better, the process a little bit more inclusive and more collaborative. And so I had shared out on behalf of the subcommittee a form for you all to add recommendations that you would like the subcommittee to discuss while they are deliberating and brainstorming on the bigger recommendations. A few folks have added comments to that, but I know that you all would love to have more council members add recommendations to that document. So Hope and Megan, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
What we have on our agenda today, we were looking to have a rich, fruitful discussion to glean feedback and recommendations from the committee and kind of just open up the floor for individuals to share recommendations here coming up almost next on our agenda. So absolutely looking to receive what is on everyone's minds. What do we want to add to our block grant recommendations, and just kind of open this up to have a discussion so people can contribute today in the moment, everyone that's on this call. So that is coming. I know we have one little recap to talk about before that. I guess we can just jump right into that. Just our SAMHSA site visit and interview recap. I wasn't sure if this is something we were taking or you were taking, Judith, on
the
information.
recap.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were thinking that it would be great for folks who were part of that interview to share their experience and kind of their takeaways. The BHA piece side of it and the summary and, you know, how the meeting, a report of how the meeting went isn't ready yet. Once it's ready, I'll be able to share all of that. But for now, I think just sharing, you know, how your experience was and what your takeaways were for those who were able to participate.
And can you remind us who was participating in that SAMHSA site visit?
Put a note here for myself. I know Dan and I have a list here, but if you all don't mind, yes, I see Marjorie's hand is up. If you all don't mind, just raising your hands if you did join that meeting. I heard great things about it, that it went well.
I just want to say, you know, you're old when and been doing this a long time, when one of the interviewers, Kyle Sargent, I kept thinking, I know that name, and he actually worked for Office of Mental Health Behavior, probably before it was behavioral health, back in the day. And I went back and looked at my old emails, and there were some from 20 years ago that he was listed in the piece. So for me, that was just a highlight, number one, to see somebody that I hadn't seen for such a long time. But the other piece was recognizing that he would have that strong history of Colorado and what the work of the Office of Mental Health at that time, but certainly doing block grant work. So I think, to me, that was just that was maybe a benefit, that he could take that personal, long-time knowledge of what we were doing in this state. As for an experience, I think people did feel comfortable in sharing their thoughts and perceptions of what's happening.
I'd love to read Bonnie's comment out loud, just to really put a point on that. Marjorie, it is also a testament to your commitment to this field and our state that you have those documents and just that institutional knowledge. And to the point of recruitment and membership, it's the retainment and the gift of Marjorie's knowledge, right? That is in this space. And as we bring in new members, all of those members are learning from Marjorie, right? From Sharon, from all these folks on this call who have been doing this work for decades. So thank you for sticking with it, y'all. It's hard, and oftentimes we are sort of the invisible folks in the back, sort of making sure that everything works. And I see you. I see all of you. I think some of the feedback was, you know, we all sort of collectively coalesced around some ideas that we had, what our thoughts were around what the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council means to the state of Colorado, and a great reminder from our OGs on the call that this council and this work has moved through many iterations of state government's expressions of how they work in mental and behavioral health, right? So it's a good reminder for us to know that our work is rooted in the federal block grant, right? And federal work. And regardless of what happens with states or changing names or staff or anything, we're still here doing the work for the people of Colorado, and we'll keep doing that, right? So it was really interesting for me to hear that perspective in the site visit, and just as a, remind us and all of us that the work we do is really consequential. And so it's really great to have all of you folks in this space. And I would like to pass it to Hope to see about what your thought of the site visit and your feedback.
Sure. I was hopeful that we could have known the questions prior so we would know what we were talking about, which we didn't. And it wasn't like they were hard questions, but some of them were pretty big questions that would have helped to have some insight into what they were, so we could have come prepared. So that, I have to say, I was a little disappointed about that. Not ever having done a site visit, we knew kind of what this was going to be about. And it was really a space for us to meet with SAMHSA. And it was really lovely, Marjorie, to see you run into this individual that you haven't in so long, and to just kind of have a space to share how we're feeling about this process, and what is important. What is our landscape? Where do we want to kind of go, and what did we want to share? So it went really fast too. Felt like they asked us some directed questions and then we didn't have a lot of space to really share kind of around the landscape and where we would like to see growth and improvement. So I thought it was an interesting experience. I don't know, Kelly was there and Dennis also. I don't know if either one of you have any shares or takeaways you'd like to express.
I think everybody's covered what we did there, so I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree, Hope. I had hoped that we would have the questions beforehand, but no.
And I thought we were told that we would, so that was a little disappointing.
Yeah, I wasn't able to secure the questions ahead of time. Sorry about that. But that's something for definitely for next time.
And I guess so my question is, this information that we shared gets distilled and then shared with the BHA, and then you will share with us? Is that the kind of the next steps?
I have seen a document of the process. I haven't really dug into it. I just kind of did a quick glance of that document, but I will go back in there and see what the actual process looks like. And then and then I can share back with the council.
So just to clarify, we're not going to get the report directly from SAMHSA.
I do not know that. I would have to check. So there is a document that kind of shows the whole process of the site visits and follow-up action items and timelines and dates. I haven't read it thoroughly enough to be able to respond accurately. And so I'll go back and look at that document and then also consult with Kasha to find out what that process looks like.
Thank you.
Right. We're moving right along today, and I think we still honor our 10-minute break, even though we're a little early. We'll just keep moving forward because I know we'd love to have a lot of space to have a rich share around our recommendations. So let's take our 10-minute now. We'll come back at 10:53 and jump right into talking about hearing from you on our block grant recommendations. All right. See you in 10. breaks always go so fast. That was only 10 minutes, but we're back at 9:53 from our lovely little break. It's nice to have when we're on the screen for 2 hours. So hopefully everybody did something meaningful and got up from their computer. All right. We're really excited to have this space to bring everyone in to talk about this draft of our 2025 block grant recommendations and to hear from you. What are you seeing? What are your recommendations from your community, from the work that you're doing, from your networks, from your constituents or members? What is missing that you would like to contribute to add to our block grant recommendations? And thank you, Megan, for dropping those in the chat so that we can all access. And big thanks to Kelly George, Sharon Mock, and Natalie Brown for your contributions already. I'll give everyone a moment to pull those up so that, and thank you for sharing those on the screen as well.
So today we're hoping to just have, it's hard sometimes, right? To pull up the document, type everything up, and like, here's an opportunity for us as a council to have that open-ended discussion. And Judith, I think you can take notes or record. So we're capturing these. So if you're thinking, man, just don't know if I have time to get through these recommendations, the time is now. And we can just speak into this space now to add to this document. So let's do it.
I was just going to ask if you could scroll that up. Thank you.
Jenny.
Thank you. I had a family emergency. I wasn't able to participate in the subcommittee meeting last month. But I would like to take this opportunity to chat for a moment with everybody, and I'm sure that other colleagues are experiencing some of the same issues. I think for the smaller communities, it's especially important the criteria for application to capture somehow sustainability in the community. In the last 2-3 years, it has been our experience that a lot of the providers who come to the small communities basically try to catch some kind of momentary gains or something that would help them develop their business operations, which is great. However, I think somehow spelling out the history of community support by the applicants and a proven record of dedication to the community's needs may be something to consider, because we often see organizations that have dedicated years of experience building staff and working on community projects that are not always profitable, but are definitely important for those communities, to be something that those organizations establish as a mainstay, as opposed to just considering bottom line and kind of commercial success. And so I'm hoping that this makes sense, but I would like to see some form of support for organizations who have historic dedication to the community's needs. And I'm sure that would apply for any community, but it's especially important for the smaller rural communities where the resources are so scarce.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jenny. A really helpful and smart share, a recommendation to add to the list to be of support. Thank you. It's really great suggestion.
Can you say more about that? And in the chat, it says one way to do that is in criteria for selection of block grant funding. So can you just say a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, I'm a recovering bureaucrat, so I jumped immediately to how to implement. I would, one of the ways that you do that is to say that in order for organizations to receive funding, you set that as a criteria with where you have applications that are reviewed and scored. You want to have a scoring amount. You have a certain amount of points attached to that level of historical community commitment, and a history of community support in especially in what I heard was in rural and frontier communities. So that's just one way I jumped into how to implement.
No, that's great information. And I wonder, Margie, I jumped in front of your hand. I wonder what our current scoring is. And Judith, I don't know if you have that rubric, but it would be great to see what's currently in that rubric and if it makes sense, right? My computer died because it was like, girl, it is the day before a holiday. Why are you working? Thinking around that rubric, and Judith, I wonder if there's a way to modify the rubric if it just doesn't make sense with our current landscape, as we do see lots of sort of pop-up venture capitalists deciding their behavioral health organizations, and those are not the folks we want to be funding. We want to be funding boots on the ground, community-based service providers. And Margie, sorry for stepping on your hand. I yield the floor.
No, please don't. I just and all I'm doing is kind of brainstorming in my brain, which is always dangerous. But previously, and I'm sorry for always saying previously, but we kind of divided things into categories: prevention, recovery, and treatment. And that kind of gave us a structure to work in, and then recommendations under those three categories. Now that we don't seem to be doing those categories any longer, I think somehow it still helps if you have a structure of which you're making these recommendations in, versus, or maybe this is how we do it now, is we just make a long list of what we want to recommend in this. But then what happens with those? Does OBH then take that long list and fit it into what their concept of the block grant is? And I said OBH, I should BHA. And or just, I guess I'm just trying to understand what our structure is on where do these things fit, though they're all important. Then I'm also thinking those that are currently receiving block grant dollars, do we want to keep that list the same? And then for them, they need to make sure that these things are happening within the work that they're doing. I guess it just, to me, would be helpful if we have that structure or that next steps when we make our list. Because again, when we made our list the last time, I'm not sure how any of those things on that list ever were really implemented. And I think that's our goal, is to make sure that whatever we're recommending is done in a process that really does make a difference, and that it will be not just check a box that we did it, but versus how are we ensuring that we are following up and being able to, whoever's receiving these dollars are including the things that we feel are a priority. And I hope I made sense there.
And I see Anne's question in the chat about the recs go back to the block grant committee for next steps. I guess I wonder myself, you know, to Marjorie's point, how we rectify the council's recommendations to align with our current funding, and make sure that those end goals of our recommendations end up in the finalized document. And question around what BHA's role is in that process, and additionally, if BHA uses our recommendations in the finalizing of their documents, or does BHA have separate documents they're also utilizing? I just have some questions in that space.
Based on my conversations with Kasha, it would be to incorporate your recommendations in the BHA application. Kasha said that she'd be able to have a few folks come to the August meeting, but for today's process, it's to gather more information and more recommendations for the block grant subcommittee to then consider during the meetings, which they will then bring to the bigger council to kind of finalize. I believe that's what the process is. And so, but from the BHA side, it's the recommendations that are put together will then be incorporated into our application. I am meeting with a few folks later on this month to kind of go over where they are so far with recommendations, or putting together some goals to make sure that we are aligning. I think one of the biggest things that had come up in the block grant subcommittee was how do we improve the process of collaboration between the council and BHA during the process of putting together the application, and not kind of after the fact. And so this process is a way to help us get ahead a little bit before BHA, you know, gets a little too far along with with our process. And so these are kind of initial steps. But yes, I hear a lot of questions that I do need to go back and get more clarification and information on. So thanks for asking those.
That would be really helpful for some clarity, because if I'm now understanding this correctly, these recommendations that we make here and the council, you know, with our subcommittee as a council as a whole, the recommendations that we provide are then put into an additional recommendations for BHA that gets submitted as part of the application. So there's our BHPAC recommendations and BHA's recommendations, and there are two sets of those?
No, I don't think that's what it is. So my understanding is, and please, for those of you who were here for the last one, if you could please chime in. These recommendations are supposed to inform BHA's application before they are finalized, or these are supposed to be taken into consideration when the BHA application is being put together, so that whatever goals and strategies they are putting together should be these recommendations, your finalized recommendations, should be considered within the application. That's how much I know of that process. I still have a lot to learn about it, so please pardon me if I am omitting anything. I will definitely go back and get more clarification about how this. Absolutely, I will do that. Thank you.
So we're in a this is our learning curve for all of us on this process.
Can I ask Margie, since you are the OG, Is that how it has always worked, or this is sort of a new way that we're working?
You know, Megan, no, it's not the way it's were previously, but it's also again where we were very diligent in making recommendations. Then what happened with those recommendations, I think, became our gray area. So again, if this is, going back to what Judith just said, and we're making a list, and then they're trying to figure out how to integrate those into what the BHA is putting together, that is a process that they're using. So it's different from how we've done it in the past. And I think Natalie and Bonnie can give their lens because they've been part of this as well. I just wanted to throw in, because I was typing in the chat, I think what is critical for this group is that any recommendations that come to this council that are not concretely included in the block grant recommendations should not be lost. Then that's where we as a group need to look at those and say, okay, how are we also addressing these, because they are important. And if they're not captured in block grant, then we need to say, how are we going to ensure that those these concerns are included in what the state is working on. So that's my added point.
Bonnie, I think I saw your hand up first.
I think I was thinking, and I think this might be my third round of recommendations with this council. And I think what has happened in the past is, as Marjorie was saying, we used to be in like subcommittees based on basically what part of the continuum of care we were interested or fell into. We would then draft recommendations. They were presented to the first OBH when I was first year, and then BHA. Back when it was OBH, I know actually Robert Worthwine, who was the director of the office at the time, came to one of these meetings and basically responded to the recommendations and talked about how they could be incorporated moving forward. And I'm looking at these recommendations, and so I'm seeing things that kind of help across the entire continuum of care. But I also think there's benefit to breaking it out by what section of the continuum it is. I think sometimes as a state employee, sometimes it's easier for me to see things that think the way that I do, if that makes sense, or in a structure that I'm used to seeing it in. And so I'm seeing a lot of things around social determinants of health, around also like giving people planning skills early on. And I think social determinants of health, employment, housing, like it's like a rising tide raises all ships. So if we focus on those things, I think it resonates, and it also is what's needed. So that's my 2 cents, take it or leave it. But I think still using that framing of the continuum of care might be a helpful structure.
Thank you, Bonnie, for that insight. It's real. I appreciate we're talking about the structure, and I think that's important as well. Natalie.
Hi, thanks. Hope. I'll just add on to what both Margie and Bonnie were saying. I think the in the past, the smaller working groups really did rely heavily upon the support and the direction of the technical assistants and the TAs, because they assisted with crafting the language that was going to be understood by the OBH and by BHA both. So we really did rely pretty heavily on the TA's support to get our recommendations identified, discussed, and we took several meetings to go through those processes versus, 1 or 2 meetings gathering feedback like what you're asking for today. And the TAs really helped us to put together those proposals that were then considered. So this process is a very different process. Perhaps why we're getting such silence in the meeting as well. And for me, I think knowing being able to know what those parameters are to move forward is going to be most helpful in being able to provide that feedback. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I think the past smaller groups with the support of our technical assistants was what helped keep us moving forward and more productive.
I'm not sure whose hand, both your hands went up at the same time. Marjorie,
I just want to add real quickly, I thank you to Bonnie and Natalie for that. And I think that I just want to say that that allowed, and I know Phyllis is on the call and Bonnie, because we were in prevention, it made such a difference to have that smaller group, to have the, I think, state and local or whatever the rest of us were, but that different perspective really did help us be able to make our prevention, at least in our world prevention recommendations, I think really were inclusive because we were seeing it from those different lenses. So I miss not having that time where we talked, and Phyllis and both Phyllis and Bonnie, it was so helpful to hear what was happening in your worlds that could be included in that process.
Anne.
Yeah, I had to step off for a minute and I'm back. So I may have missed part of that. But what I wanted to say is that there are, in an ideal world, the way that you have your block grant review committee structured and your system advocacy committee structured, in an ideal world, what would happen is that the system advocacy group would be working all year long at identifying system-wide issues, looking at data related to those issues, and then making recommendations to the block grant committee. This year, y'all have had so much change in your system that I totally support the idea that your system advocacy committee sort of steps down for a minute until there's things to look at. You don't know how it's going to roll out. It's hard to make recommendations based on that while things are changing so fast. But in an ideal world, part of your recommendations would come from that system advocacy committee. Some of your recommendations would come from a process like you're doing now, which is soliciting written and verbal input from the full council. And then part of your activity then for the block grant committee is to make recommendations to the state about how they integrate just the topic y'all were talking about when I had to hop off, how you integrate what the planning council's concerns are into what the state will be proposing to the federal government. And I couldn't agree with Margie more. If Anne wants to do puppy sitting and that doesn't make it into the block grant application, let's track what we're doing about puppy sitting, my imaginary puppy sitting intervention. Let's track what happens with that going forward so you don't lose it. The other thing that I want to say, just as sort of an outsider observing, and within the context of planning councils all over the country, one of the things that the state has done effectively this year, one of the concerns in the letter that was submitted last year by you guys, by the planning council that accompanied the block grant, one of the concerns was lack of data, that you didn't have the data that you wanted to have around how block grant funding was used and who it benefited. And I would say, the state still is using block grant dollars as sort of ice, other than set asides, it's icing on a cake, right? So it's added into general pots of funding and people access that, providers access that. And so there's still that fundamental structure that impedes your ability to say, Ann Denton got $500 of block grant funded services and she benefited in this way. That data doesn't exist. But what the state did give you, I thought, was an excellent response to the request for information. They gave you everything they had. And so, at least from my perspective, the level of transparency and honesty and in the spirit of working together, those data presentations that you all sat through in the last few months have been a direct response to Planning Council concerns from last year. So I'm just trying to give you some context from the perspective, of somebody who's worked with Planning Councils for a long time.
Thank you. That's really helpful to hear, Anne. Megan.
Thank you, Anne. And to that note, I wonder with our time left, if everybody on this call feels like we can move into like just kind of a brainstorming session with that kind of framing that Anne has just provided for us so we can continue to move along in our block grant subcommittees, but maybe using the rest of the time today, if everyone's cool with it, to kind of just get that brain dump going, and then we can begin to sort that out and have a look at those data sets that Anne mentioned and kind of reflect on our current environment. But I wonder if we use the rest of our time today and round robin it. And to everyone on this call, even if you're like, I don't know, just to give your honest feedback so that we do have that and we can begin to coalesce that.
Megan, I'm so sorry. Could you repeat the ask specifically?
We want a brain dump. I do. Me. I want to know if that is the pleasure of the group because all of you have so much to contribute and we have 40 minutes or something. Let's go. Unless I'm getting ahead of the train, which I often do. Can we round robin it? Like, Hope, can you call on each person and have them put a contribution in today, right now?
Sure. Are we good with that? Thumbs up. So I'll just start as the boxes are in my screen here with Sharon.
Let me find my mic. I'm not sure if I'm going the right direction, but one of the things that I really see, if I remember right from when we looked at the budget last year, we were looking at where the money was going and looking for data. We saw a lot of that, the amount of money that was going to prevention. And prevention is a very important piece in what we're trying to do. But then when, in the definition of the prevention that I've seen when I've looked it up, it includes not only SUD, but it includes the mental health realm. And what happened, what I see, at least what we see where I am, and it's not just where I am, but in our outlying counties, and I think maybe more than we realize across the state, most of that money is going to SUD for prevention, and they need that prevention. However, harm reduction is all focused, and it. I read a definition of harm reduction that included SUD and also included mental health issues. But I could find nothing when you go to look for what are the harm reduction pieces in mental health. There aren't any. When they begin naming the preventions, there's no mental health. It's all SUD. And I'm not against the SUD. We need that. But a lot of the things that they have in the SUD prevention need to be available to our children with mental health, our families with mental health. And when we just had that list up there of the recommendations, the last one that was on the SUD side, absolutely perfect. They're marvelous recommendations. But do you realize we have children with mental health issues, children with high-level autism that need the same work support, the same helping them find a job and having somebody go with them. We have kids turning 21, they're out of the system, they're done. What do? And in these small communities, we don't have that support. And that's where I come. We need to start. We don't even know. I just met with a family of autism parents with children with autism, didn't even know how to reach a care coordinator, didn't know we had a care coordinator, didn't know what the Ray was, didn't know how to reach anybody in the Ray. They don't know how to get resources. They have no clue because we have no information down here. And we have our kids are lost when they need more help than what the families know how to give because we have no training down here. They get to middle school, they're in so much trouble in middle school, they're going to and half of them end up in residential homes, and then Medicaid quits, they get sent home to parents still untrained. And when they turn 21, nobody knows what to do with them because we don't have all those prevention resources and they fit. You can modify all of those that we're doing for SUD and put some of that focus also into our higher level mental health children. And that would be a great benefit to our families that are struggling with what they're going to do when their child turns 21. When they turn 18 and they're out of all the programs. And I've heard success stories about kids that have gotten jobs and done well in bigger areas where there is that kind of support for them. That's my dump.
Eloquently said, Sharon. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Bonnie, I saw your hand go up first.
Sharon, I also really like your focus on youth getting the supports that they deserve and need to thrive and succeed. I think that's exactly what needs to happen. And I was like, oh, I should probably provide some context around SUD prevention, and especially in the context of SAMHSA's substance misuse block grant. So that's a separate block grant from the mental health one, but a mandatory part of the prevention block grant is that 20% of the funds be set aside for primary prevention. SAMHSA defines this as activities or services that are designed before the onset of a disorder or before a diagnosis, I think is the correct term. So my team at CDPHE, we are charged with managing our state's 20% set aside. So there's an interagency agreement between the Behavioral Health Administration and CDPHE, and that's where our funding comes from. And listening to like just the way you describe basically like what is needed in terms of a system of support for our young people, I absolutely agree. And I think if we think about prevention and again like the basically basic needs, social determinants of health, when people have a wage where they can thrive and provide care for their children, that's prevention. It leads to better outcomes across the board. So I think any sorts of recommendations that address the basic needs of Coloradans, it helps everyone and especially our most vulnerable.
Thank you, Bonnie. Tasha.
Hey guys. I just have to say thank you so much, Sharon, for saying that, because as a person of 100% lived experience, that's exactly what I went through our system and stuff. There is no prevention. There's the misdiagnosed, there's the misdiagnosis is where they're not catching the neurodivergence and the autism, and there's not the education there. And for me, that's exactly how I ended up in the criminal justice system. That's how I struggled my whole life, is because and I ended up using substances when nobody would listen to me. That's why, is because nobody took the time to use that as prevention to get the mental health and the stuff that was missed, the trauma of all of it. And so thank you so much for saying that. And I say that if we had adequate mental health care, not only for our children, but or the youth and the adults, there would be a reduction of substance use disorder. Period. So they're pushing all the substance use. Well, where's the mental health? That's what I've seen in the last 3 years is they push the substance, but there wasn't anything for the mental health. Or there was a little bit, but it was swept under the rug after a while. So thank you so much. I just gotta say thank you so much for doing that. And especially for the rural areas. They don't have the access to care that the people along the up and down the I-25 corridor have. They don't have it. They have to go like Lyman. They don't have any services. You got to go to Colorado Springs, Alamosa. I don't know exactly like the southern half. That's where we need to focus. So that's my piece. Thank you for letting me share that. You guys just gave me goosebumps.
Thank you so much for sharing and from a personal perspective, Tasha. I really appreciate you. Sharon.
I just had a real quick update to what I said, but I got so enthralled in Tasha. I hope I can remember it, but because that was, I mean, that's from lived experience. Yeah, she's absolutely right. But the thing that really breaks my heart, that I really fight for, really here, and it was mentioned in passing, but I am at this moment setting through a lot of creative solution meetings, trying to help kids that are being discharged from residential homes for various reasons that are not prepared. They're not that fully through their skill base. And I have heard, I have a family voice that I have stood up down here in our particular rural, well, frontier place. And two of the people on it are people that have in the past had lived experience with their children not being able to find help when they needed help. And they were told, well, you'll just have to wait till they get arrested. You'll just have to wait until the DHS takes them. You just have to wait till then, and then they'll have to be forced to give them some help. And that happened a few years back, and I about fell out of my chair and threw my complete computer out the window 2 weeks ago when I heard the same answer from our Creative Solutions. Well, I shouldn't say from Creative Solutions, but somebody on, and I'm not saying that it was from the Creative Solution team. I don't remember where they were from, but that same answer came up. Well, sooner or later, if they don't figure it out, they will get arrested or DHS will take them, and then they'll be forced to get them treatment. That's so wrong. How dare we put a parent in that position? How dare you put a child in that position? And I cannot believe that those words ever come out of anyone's mouth, that that's our only solution, especially in our outlying areas on both ends of the state. That is not a solution and should never be a solution.
Sean.
Yeah, so just brain dump thinking out loud here. Something that I see that's kind of becoming an issue is oftentimes these grants are asking people to show us how we're going to make this a sustainable practice. right? And how organizations will sustain. And so for a long time, for peer support, for example, the sustainable is we'll find some clinician to contract with, and then we'll start billing Medicaid. And then we lose the and I'm seeing this in organizations around the state. We lose the authenticity of peer support because now, in order to be sustainable, we can only work with people with Medicaid. And so people that don't have Medicaid no longer get access to peer support because we're just too busy, because we have to be sustainable because we're going to lose this grant. And so, like, it's just this turn and burn of we got to get more people on Medicaid. You got to get more people on Medicaid. Oh, we can't take that person. They're not on Medicaid. Help them get on Medicaid. Oh, they don't qualify for Medicaid. Then we can't see them. And so it's this, we're losing the authenticity of some of our services when we make folks find a sustainable, how to sustain the work they do when the only sustainable thing is to bill Medicaid. And so, like, how do we continue to fund programs and not force them into that, like, oh, it has to be a sustainable model? Like, does it, or can like grant funding be sustainable? Can we not just be okay with grant funding being sustainable for organizations, or do we just only want people with Medicaid to have access to service? So I don't know what the solution to that is besides like continuing to uh, continuing to provide financial support to these organizations and not force them into some sustainable model.
Thank you, Sean. Well said. Marjorie.
I just want to say that I think it's painful for all of us when we hear these stories, and probably everyone here has a story that they could share. I also keep thinking, I started out thinking, Bonnie, when you came and shared about when you were funding the people, when you were funding for your prevention programs, how many programs applied but didn't get funded? I think we have we are so limited in what the state actually does, and that always leaves that huge number of those uncared for. Because each one of those grants you heard, something I think critically important that deserve to be funded. And I think, Jacob, what you just said shows that nonprofits, small groups that are trying to help, they themselves are not able to meet the need. So this is just for me. We can't fix everything. I wished we could. But I'm wondering if some point we just look at that, what can we put into these block grant recommendations that at least can move us forward to saying the needs in this state are huge. The needs of this state were huge before we were in a fiscal crisis, which is going to mean the needs are even good, is going to be greater. We can't pretend otherwise. We don't talk about it enough to say what's going to happen because of all these people left uninsured. So to me, our work has got to be, what piece of this can we do with our recommendations? Sharon, it has always been a dual diagnose. The way this body has been done was the dual diagnose was mental health and substance use. IDD was intellectual developmental disabilities, was that because that used to be a dual diagnosed, was mental health and IDD. But then when that term didn't get funded in this venue, it got lost. So how do we ensure that you don't have to be labeled something, that that BHA is responsible? At BHA meetings, they're saying we want to do for everybody. We want no one to be excluded. Then we have to be the champions saying, that's right. So people with mental health, substance use, IDD, all of those pieces have to be integrated. I always said there is a 5-year-old does not have a substance use issue for the most part. So we cannot lump everybody under one thing. How can we smartly make it so the triangle is for everyone, and then it's individualized, as it says in a system of care model, that we then individualize it for the needs of that family and those children, or that consumer, that adult, that senior looking at dentists. How do we make those things happen? Because we, the state, has carved us up. And I think that becomes our recommendation. I'm tired of being carved up. You need to make this work for everyone. Or don't pretend like you are. Don't say I care about everyone. Forever, the family has been told, just wait, they'll get in the juvenile justice system and they'll help. Well, the juvenile justice system is not the place where we get our help. And I will shut up because I'm rambling. But that's my.
Well said, Marjorie. Thank you. And the passion is felt, and from all the shares here, the intensity of these recommendations and what we need. And thank you for everyone for participating here. This is what we are looking for, and your voice and your recommendations and experience is exactly what we're doing. And so thank you for bringing that. And Sharon, I see your hand up. Before we come back to you, is there someone that we haven't heard from yet?
I just forgot to put mine down.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for your share. I know we've had a very rich suggestions, recommendations, and comments in our chat. Those are being recorded. Anyone that wants to vocalize something that you've already shared or be in the space here together, please. We're welcoming you. Megan.
And remember, we experience every day the desperation of people in our communities, but today we come together to really come from that solution space, right? And so thank you so much to everyone who's contributed solutions in this space. We really do want to hear from the whole council, because we don't know your communities. We don't know what you're experiencing with the people you serve. So please share. If you don't feel like sharing and vocally, please put it in the chat. If you don't feel like putting it in the chat, you've got the document. But we really, really want to and need to hear from you and your partners and your network, so that we know that these recommendations that we're rising up are recommendations that will touch all of our affected communities. To everyone's point on this call, every day we see what could be solutions, and that's what needs to show up in this recommendation document.
Jenny.
Sorry, my device is not very responsive. Just because you're so wonderful, Megan, to invite all voices, and really kind of makes me think about the many changes that we have gone through in the last years, and especially months. It has been kind of a whirlwind of changes, and I think the burden of that is for everybody, but especially the consumers, the people of Colorado, the final kind of the ultimate litmus test for how successful we are. And so I think as we promote any new structures and any new functions and any new institutions and agents of this change, I'm also thinking that we have to do something to simplify, make things very understandable, readable, close to everybody's mind and heart, and help people feel like this is not just another change that's coming down the pike, but it's something that will be functional. Hope has a tendency to wear off after a while. And I think because we work in an area where people have been promised, person-centered approach and integrated approach, and variety of harm reduction models and a variety of mental health innovations, I think that they're very skeptical right now. And I think we need to do something to respond to that skepticism, to help them feel like this is going to be something doable, something that will help them find better care quickly. We founded in 2015 a small private mental health organization called Good Neighbor, and we try to keep it independent from any kind of temporary changes, and kind of like an experiment of whether we can provide services as a good neighbor, regardless of what's happening in the big world. And I'm just saying this because in the mental health field, I have been in Colorado since 1999. There's been so much that changes all the time that I think everybody is tired of it. And so, how can we make the latest changes speak truth and speak to the people's needs and their mental health care in a way that they feel like they're taken care of? How can we minimize the frustrations? How can we help also the providers feel like they're not going to go through just yet another change? Those are some of the questions that keep me up at night.
Thank you, Jenny. Very important questions. Kelly.
So I am just really kind of speaking on this idea of living in a rural community. And since we were bringing up what we've seen, one of the things that I see is that providers oftentimes feel like they're going to be ineffective, which is why we will hear this, well, we're just going to have to wait till they go to jail, or we're just going to have to wait until DHS steps in or takes, does something about this thing. If we stop it at that point, if we get providers to understand you don't have to be as effective as you're feeling. If we can find that way, and I mean, Tasha said it great, compassion training. If we can get providers to recognize that sometimes just standing next to the people who are there, if we can do some training around that, building up those community connections, that's the huge thing. And that can be one of the best things for prevention, because otherwise you have these caregivers in these positions. They're sitting there going, I have nobody on my side. Everybody just wants to send this person away to jail. They just want to wash their hands and be done with it. If we find a way to build up those connections and we sit back and we say, hey, this is preventative care because we're building community, instead of everybody is pointing the finger at the people, because in rural communities that happens. I'm sorry, it does. It does. It doesn't matter if you're on the right side of town or the wrong side of town. If you have, an issue that's going on, it's, oh, well, they're the bad people. If we can do that, we can build up this better sense of community. We're creating better health outcomes, physical health outcomes. We're creating better mental health outcomes. We're acting as we're including everybody. There's all of these different things that can happen. And I mean, the whole goal in behavioral health is to help people be able to reach their potentials. If we're not doing those types of things, if we're not creating that community, if we're not building those inroads and relationships and telling people, yeah, this sucks, this is hard, you're building up more walls and putting up more barriers. And you're not helping people find the access. I don't know how to fix any of these issues. I just know that in rural areas, we don't have services. What service providers we do have are usually, they're burned out. They need more help, but they also don't understand because we don't have any training around these issues. at all. We need the providers to get on board with that, and we need to be providing supports for the caregivers. I don't know if there's a program out there, but maybe there is, where we can find a way to bring those two together, because that is preventative care. Caregivers have a higher rate of substance use issues. We're lessening that issue as well, which is going to keep kids out of foster care and out of possible group homes and facilities. If we start there, there's so much we could do. There's so much supports that we really could do. Sorry, y'all wanted me to share, so I'm sharing.
Thank you, Kelly. Megan.
Thank you, everyone, for being so vulnerable. And as we've all reflected, right, we have these sort of things in piecemeal, and how we ask through the block grant funding for those piecemeal actions to coalesce. There's already systems in place that we are not fully utilizing. And I hope that our recommendation letter shows how all those different pieces of the systems could potentially come together with flex funding, using these block grants in a flexible way to really integrate those community networks and wrap people in support in the ways that work for them. The more that we can utilize this document towards, maybe people don't always know. And here's a way to say, here's how we can integrate all these different spaces. Here's how we can utilize our existing resources. And to Anne's point, the icing on the top being the SAMHSA block grants. How can we take that icing and glue together all those systems as they were meant to be glued? Sometimes they're not glued together just because of funding. That's such a silly reason not to glue them together. So how can this recommendation also serve as that narrative so that all of our networks and all of our communities who are working adjacent to each other can begin to work together, and we're not then always sort of deferring back to criminal justice, back to institution, right? We keep incurring class action lawsuits because we do that. So we know we can't continue to. How can this document be that narrative? I do believe we have all the pieces of the puzzle together. We're just going to put the puzzle and make it pretty in this document. I have that faith. I have that hope. And I know all of us do. I also know that there's a lot of folks counting on us. So we can do this.
Thank you, Megan, for eloquently tying this together and adding the icing into this mix and into this conversation. I know we are at 10:51. We also had the oh, my computer's being super weird. The community engagement reporting component. We also had public comment at 10:55. So Judith, is there, unless there's any, I don't ever like taking away from this rich and vulnerable conversation and having to move us along in an agenda. This is my least favorite part of this role and something that I have to do. So I thank you all for your contributions. We are meeting next week on Thursday at 9:30 or 10:30. I'm sorry, someone please help me.
9:30.
At 9:30. And that's accessible on the events calendar for anyone to be able to access the Zoom link. If you are not already coming, please join us as we continue this journey. And thank you everyone for your incredible contributions, vulnerability, and voice in the space. And we will continue to move this along. We have a deadline of September 1st. So we've still got some time to incorporate what was shared today. Judith, is there something in 3 minutes that we can turn over to you to share on a community engagement?
How about one? I can do this in 1 minute. I feel like we should, this is just a repeat. And I just want to reiterate, thank you so much for sharing. I'm really looking forward to us working collaboratively with the BHA team that I know is really committed to working on all of these strategies and really important priorities that you've all brought up. I just wanted to reiterate, that we have a really busy summer here at BHA, lots of events for you to participate in. So yesterday we went to Boulder. We had a great meeting for the community conversation with Commissioner. It was very eventful for sure because we had a quick unexpected location change, and it was just great to see everyone just come together and help folks get to the right location. And so some of the attendees waited at the old place and sent people to the new location. I was just really, it was really heartwarming to see our commitment to, having conversation, about behavioral health. So that was great to see. So we had that great meeting yesterday, the big BASO launch and Colorado Lift launch is next week, Wednesday. Looking forward to seeing many of you there. And this calendar just shows the rest on the agenda, just shows the rest of the event. All the BASO Regional Council kind of listening sessions for each of the regions. Those are occurring every Monday in July, starting next Monday. It's all on the event calendar. And so there's now the Zoom link should be on there on the events calendar for those virtual meetings. Based on my conversation with Megan, even if it's not your region, you can still join to listen in. The information is pretty much the same for each region. There might be specifics, a few specifics to each region, but generally the information will be the same. And so those are all going to be great for those who want to join the regional councils, or at least participate and see what they're up to. But yeah, that's all I have, just resharing our event calendar and all that we have going on. Our next commission conversation is going to be in Grand Junction on the 15th. So looking forward to see some of you there too. Is there anything I can provide more information on about the events and our meetings coming up? I think I'm good then. Thank you.
As we are about to, thank you, Judith. And as we are about to move into public comment, just as a note, thank you, Megan, for sharing. Again, if anyone has any additional input, you can email Judith, Megan, me, or incorporate your input into our Google Doc that has been shared. I guess one question I do have for you, Judith, this very rich, fulfilling recommendations that came not only vocally but in chat, how will those will also be taken and distilled and incorporated into
the draft? Yes,
the draft
before Thursday's meeting, so that you at least have all that. And then yes,
that's awesome. Thank you.
Even if you guys have an epiphany in the middle of the night, put it in an email, text me. I don't even care. Like, we want that input. And sometimes it happens when you're walking your dog. That's okay. We really, really want to hear from you, especially knowing sort of how the dollars are moving at the federal level. We want all the input.
I'm not sure if you officially open it up for public comment.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Officially open for public comment.
When I'm looking at the calendar and I'm looking for the block grant subcommittee meeting on Thursday, July 10th, I don't see it. I do see block grant subcommittee on Wednesday, July 9th from 9 to 10 a.m. on the Behavioral Health and Planning Advisory Council meeting calendar page of BHA.
I will
So
fix that. I need to change. I'll contact who. I need to change that on the events calendar and switch the time because that old time changed. So I just need to do a revision on that. Thank you so much for catching that, Sean.
Well, as we wrap up and close out our July BPAC meeting, I just want to thank everyone so very much for being here, for being vulnerable, for showing up and sharing, and for the incredible work that each one of you does. Thank you. And thank you, Megan, for sharing love and a friendly reminder for the 4th to find joy, celebrate freedom, and love to you all. That was very eloquently put, and I share that for everyone. And we will officially close out our July BPAC meeting. Thank you all so much for today, really. Thank you, and take good care of yourselves and each other. Good night.